When it's time to pick out a receiver in your fantasy football draft, these are some of the guys we have to have. But do we both feel that way? Let me remind you that if you join us on flockfantasy.com/endgame, you get access to our rankings at wide receiver, at running back, for Dynasty, for Best Ball, for Redraft, and so much more. And if you want to try out Dynasty and you haven't already, well, we've got just the thing for you. You can check out our 8-part video course on how to build a champion. That's right. We'll take all our knowledge and put it into one nice package so you can learn how to build a Dynasty champion and you can even compete with us. We'll also do the same thing for Redraft. We will teach you how to win and have more fun playing fantasy. All that and a lot more. flockfantasy.com/endgame, 30% off if you subscribe now. Let's talk about the first must-have wide receiver in question. It's a guy who's going in the first round in a lot of our early mocks. If you catch us live every single week when we do our mock drafts, let's talk about CeeDee Lamb. Who among us believes that he is a guy you have to target early? All right, well, we both like Lamb this year. Chris, let's lay out your case. Why do you think Lamb is deserving of being a top 5 receiver?
I think the right question is, why is he not? Like, what are the knocks on CeeDee Lamb? I don't know. Like, he's going to get a massive target share in one of the best passing offenses in the NFL. I mean, they signed Brandon Cooks. Do we really feel like Brandon Cooks is going to take a massive targets away from CeeDee Lamb? No. Michael Gallup? No. It's pretty much going to be CeeDee Lamb getting close to a 30% target share. And maybe the one argument you can make is like, well, Kellen Moore isn't there anymore, and now it's going to be Mike McCarthy, and they want to run the ball more. Yeah, he said that, but go look back at the history of Mike McCarthy. He's one of the past heaviest coaches in history, and he's going to be calling the plays now. I don't think they're going to run more. I think they're going to pass even more than they have been. I've talked about it many times. Outside of the big four, which for me is Jefferson, Chase, Hill, and Kupp, I think CeeDee Lamb has the best chance at finishing number 1 overall among wide receivers, so absolute must draft every chance I can.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm not putting him over Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson, right? Nobody is. But I think he's in the, contention for the number 3 slot there, maybe the next receiver off the board. And like you said, they're still going to pass it a ton. We talk about running backs surviving the draft because they didn't get somebody to compete for touches. I think CeeDee Lamb did the same because they didn't get anybody early on. I guess, the whole Jalen Tolbert thing last year maybe bit them. Yeah, Brandon Cooks came on, and, if he stays healthy and not suspended, then sure, he'll get some targets. But don't forget, they lost Noah Brown, who was the number 3 guy last year, and they lost Dalton Schultz, who caught a lot of passes as a tight end, and they replaced him with a rookie who is still unproven and a rookie tight end. So I think Lamb's target share might actually increase this year. There's really no reason, like you said, to doubt that he will be an elite wideout. Now, one guy getting a ton of helium, even before they acquired Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, is Garrett Wilson. I mean, he definitely had his moments last year, despite whoever they rolled out at quarterback. So is he really going to break out? Do you think he's a must-have? Well, clearly you do. All right, Chris, why are you thinking Garrett Wilson is ready to be among the elite?
Well, I think he already is among the elite if you just look at him as a player. He was great last year as a rookie, did everything you want to see as a rookie wide receiver. But now he gets a major QB upgrade. And sure, maybe Aaron Rodgers is no longer elite like he was in his prime, but he's still very good. And one thing we've seen is Aaron Rodgers will laser focus on one guy. We saw it with Devontae Adams. We saw it with Allen Lazard for a little bit. We saw it with Christian Watson. I think he's going to laser focus on Garrett Wilson here because who else do they really have? I mean, they brought in all the Packers, kind of cast-offs. There's not really any other true elite wide receiver on this team. I think Garrett Wilson's going to have a huge target share. Aaron Rodgers still more than good enough to support him as a top wide receiver. So another guy like CeeDee Lamb, I'm trying to get every chance I can.
I mean, there's no denying Wilson's talent, and I'm happy to have him if I can get him more early second, mid-second round, but I feel like that's not going to happen, so I don't want to say he's a must-have because sometimes I feel like he's going too early from what we've seen, and I think some of the arguments for Wilson, like you said with Aaron Rodgers, to me, I'm going to hold that against him because what have we seen from Aaron Rodgers last year? He's a little bit more of a game manager these days, honestly. They don't want him slinging the ball. And going to the Jets, who have a really good defense and have a really good running back in Breece Hall, they're not going to need him to throw the ball that much. And so I feel like maybe the target volume isn't going to be what we desire. A lot of times Wilson had these monster games because Zach Wilson or Joe Flacco, whoever it was putting the team in such a bad position that they had to pass a ton to come back. And I really don't feel like this Jets team is going to do that. I feel like Wilson will have his moments, but maybe getting a little bit too much hype because of this whole Rodgers thing. And he's still going to give his buddies, Randall Cobb and Alan Lazard, he's going to give them a few of these undeserved targets too. Now let's get to a rookie, guy who was drafted early, but he's opposite maybe the best wideout in the league. How do we feel about Jordan Addison? Is he still a guy you have to have? All right, so let's hear it. How can he feast even opposite JJ?
Well, that's why he can feast. Number one, this is one of the pass-heaviest teams, or it was one of the pass-heaviest teams last year. But there's no reason that should change. They have Kevin O'Connell still there as the coach. The defense, I think, has even gotten worse because they just traded away their best pass rusher. This defense might actually be worse than it was last year, which means they're going to be in negative game script, having to throw the ball a lot. Addison was a prospect that I liked if he landed in the right situation, and he absolutely did because, look, defenses aren't going to now suddenly say, ooh, let's not worry about Justin Jefferson. We got to worry about this rookie. No, they're still going to put a ton of attention on Justin Jefferson, which is going to leave Jordan Addison open quite a bit. And in an offense like this that throws the ball so much, he's going to have tons and tons of opportunity. And look, Adam Thielen was dusty last year. He's gone. KJ Osborne, he's nice, but I think Addison is better. I think he could instantly slot in as a number 2 wide receiver in a very pass-heavy offense. So to me, one of the rookies I have to draft everywhere.
Exactly. I'm definitely going to grab him wherever possible. I'm definitely taking him over guys like Quentin Johnston. And I think he's going to be really undervalued, which is crazy, thinking of the guy who won the Blitnikoff Award 2 years ago and was drafted in the first round. He's going to thrive because he's got Justin Jefferson there, just like you said. Kirk Cousins, he's going to sling the ball. That defense is still terrible. They're going to pass it a lot. Dalvin Cook might be released or traded. Who knows? They're not going to really have much choice but to pass the ball a lot. And Addison, I love the fact that his role, which is why I like him better than a guy like Johnson, he's going to be occupying the middle of the field and getting a lot of those easier targets. He's not going to rely on the deep ball and some of those, lower quality targets. I think he's going to get a ton of volume. I love him as a PPR machine. All right, let's go back to a second-year receiver, George Pickens in Pittsburgh. Not a lot changing with that offense, but do you think that he's a guy that will take this big step forward in 2023?
Maybe, but maybe not. And he's not a guy I feel like I have to go out and get. I like the potential, but I said it last year when he was drafted by the Steelers. I like the player. I like what he can do. I don't like the match with Kenny Pickett because what does George Pickens excel on? He excels on those deeper routes, those vertical routes, the outs, the corners. Those are not really Kenny Pickett's strengths, those type of throws. And why would that change this year? I don't think Kenny Pickett is suddenly going to turn into some amazing deep ball thrower who could take advantage of George Pickens' skill set. So to me, sure, when he falls far enough, if he's there, I'll gamble on the potential. I'll gamble on the upside. But if I don't get him, it's okay too because I realize there's also a lot of risk here. And it's just, again, hard for me to see his potential being realized for as long as Kenny Pickett is his quarterback.
I will say, I'll give you that maybe he won't reach his full potential in this particular offense, this quarterback. But I still think that there's so much that he can offer. I think he can thrive despite of Kenny Pickett, I guess, if that makes sense. He was one of the best, even as a rookie, in contested catch situations. He's a guy who, had some monster games, had some, down games. That was the whole Steelers offense last year. But Kenny Pickett, regardless of what you think of him, I don't think he's ever going to be a superstar. But after a really rough start where he was throwing picks left and right, he did not turn the ball over at all toward the end of the season. He was able to be more accurate. He figured things out, slowed things down. I feel like we're going to see a step forward this year from both guys. They're going to have time to work on the chemistry. No more worrying about Mitch Trubisky being in the mix or anybody else. So I think it'll be enough that Pickens will go a little bit undervalued. I mean, I want that big game potential. I want the guy who can make those big plays. It won't be as often as we would like, and maybe not as often as he's capable of because of the situation he's in. But man, Pickens is a guy I want in my lineup more often than not. And that leads me to Christian Watson, very similar player. We only saw a glimpse of what he has to offer, but now Jordan Love at quarterback, does that still keep your interest? Looks like it does. All right, tell me why you're targeting him wherever you can.
Because unlike George Pickens, I feel like Christian Watson is a kind of guy. I mean, no wide receiver is QB proof, but he can run. Of course he can excel in those deep routes as well, like George Pickens can. But he can also excel in like some of the other routes, like slants and things, where he can get involved in different ways. And he's the type of guy like, yeah, Pickens will make those highlight reel catches, those contested catches, but he's not going to take a 5-10 yard slant to the house. That's not his game. Christian Watson can do that. He can take a little quick slant, take it to the house. So I love that yard after catch ability, that speed he has. I did like him better when it was Aaron Rodgers, of course, but I still think with Jordan Love, he'll be good enough. Another guy I feel like you said with Pickens, he's going to have the kind of upside that can win you weeks. And for me, I'm going to gamble on that. So for me, Christian Watson, any chance I can, I'm drafting him.
I'll tell you, I like Watson, and I kind of like his value according to current ADP, but there's times where he's on the board and I hesitate. I still have a couple of reservations, and I'll tell you what they are. Number one, Jordan Love, right? I still think he'll be fine, but I don't know for a fact that he'll be fine or great even. So there's that. There's just the unknown there. And then there's the fact that unlike Pickens, which I mentioned, he can get up and get the ball if it's not placed perfectly. He can go over a cornerback. He can catch that ball on the sideline. Watson is not a big guy. He's a fast guy, but he doesn't have quite the reach, right? He's going to need to get the ball in stride so he has space, and then he can make that yard after catch happen. Watson is just a little bit more dependent, I think, on the quarterback than a guy like Pickens. And I like him, but also some of the issues I had worries about last offseason before he was coming into the league, drops could be an issue, and injuries. We saw it last year. He was banged up quite a bit. Those are the things that kind of make me just a little hesitant on him. Those are some receivers that we have to have in drafts, but how many of them make the cut for our top 24 rankings? Check that out right here.